Welcome to the Vicki and Carl Zeiger Insight Seminar for Comedy of Errors tonight. My name is Becks Redman. My title at the Old Globe is Associate Producer. This is the first Insight Seminar that I'm hosting, so I'm very excited. And I get to do it with none other than James Vásquez, who is Old Globe royalty. Yeah. James, how many Insight Seminars have you done?
Gosh, I don't know. This is maybe, I've done at least 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
So going off of what I said about Old Globe royalty, can we start with what is your history with the Old Globe?
Yeah, sure. I'll do the very, very quick version since I know a lot of people have heard it. I actually started hanging out here when I was 12 at Camp Orbit. I was given a scholarship to come spend the summer and study when I was 12. I was lucky enough at 15 to do my first show here as an actor in the Carter Theater, which is now the White Theater. I came back while I was off in New York at drama school. I came back during the summers and taught Camp Orbit. And then when that became the Summer Shakespeare intensive, started working with that. I joined the Grinch cast in the ensemble in its 6th year. We're headed into our 28th year, and I have been with it since. I now direct the Grinch. I've been directing it for, 15 years. I was the swing on the show for many years, which meant that I was the universal cover. So I've played every role in the Grinch except Mama and Grandma Who. I started out on the festival stage many years ago with opportunities to choreograph for the Summer Shakespeare Festival. And now, many years later, have been a resident artist here at the Old Globe, have worked up in the offices to fill in at one point in time, and I think have now, not counting Grinch, I think this is my 10th or 11th show that I've been lucky to be asked to direct here at the Globe.
That's amazing. It's always so fun when James is in the office because he'll say, you know, when I first started coming to the Old Globe, your office wasn't here. That office was a rehearsal studio. You know, I think, is it Barry and Tim's was a rehearsal studio before?
Well, Barry and Tim's was actually, it used to be one office, and it was Craig Knoll's office. That upstairs corner has gone through many different renovations. But when I was 15 and doing the show as an actor here, it was directed by Craig Knoll. And there were days that we wouldn't go to the rehearsal studio. We would rehearse in his office. Wow. So yes, Barry's office was sometimes an office and sometimes a rehearsal studio.
That's awesome. So of those 10, 11 shows that you've directed here at the Old Globe, can you name a few so that people can know what else they can connect you to?
Yes. No, I've been given some really beautiful opportunities to tackle some new plays, and if not new, then West Coast premieres. Downstairs, I was lucky to do the West Coast premiere of Tiny Beautiful Things, and world premieres with playwright Jose Cruz Gonzalez. We did Under a Baseball Sky and American Mariachi. And American Mariachi has gone on to have such a big, beautiful life throughout the country. What else? Hair, out on the festival stage. I did Merry Wives of Windsor a couple summers ago. My first, though, my first official was the Rocky Horror Show many years ago. And I actually started as the assistant director, and 4 days before Tech took over as the director. Oh. And we, I'll never forget, we went in on Thursday afternoon. They pulled me aside and said, "You're taking over." So I walked in Thursday afternoon, and I said, "Okay, any questions?" And the whole cast went, phew. So for the rest of the afternoon, I just sat there and I wrote their questions down. And I said, I'm gonna go home and I'll come back in tomorrow with answers. So Friday morning, we came in. I answered all the questions. We started at the top of Act 1. We restaged all of Act 1. Saturday, we restaged all of Act 2. Sunday, we did a stumble through, and then we did our Zitz probe, and then that Tuesday, we started tech. And I'll never forget, it was one of those moments when the Globe said, "Can you take this over?" It was one of those moments in my brain where I went, "You're stupid if you say yes, and you're stupid if you say no." And I said, "Let's jump." So I said yes, and I'll never forget first preview. I was sitting in the back row with Michael Murphy, who was here at the time, and it started, and people were excited, and they were responding well. And then we got to the point where there's a light over at the Frankenstein place. And suddenly, newspapers came out, and people started putting over their heads. And then lighters came out, and people put them over their heads and started waving back and forth. And Michael looked at me, and I just went... and I just started crying in the back row. And I was like, it's working. It's working. It was the biggest relief of my life. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So this year comes along, or I guess maybe last year at some point, and Barry calls you and says, "Hey, do you want to direct Comedy of Errors?" What was your first thought when you got that asked?
Yes.
This time it was yes. I'd be stupid if I took it.
Yes. No, I love Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. And again, a little piece of my history, which I've shared before. When I was here that summer, out on the festival stage was Jack O'Brien's Midsummer Night's Dream and Paxton Whitehead as Richard III. And those two shows were my introduction to Shakespeare. And I remember watching Paxton Whitehead and not understanding a single thing that was being said, but fully aware that I was in the presence of something special and magical that I wanted to know more about. And I was lucky to then go off and train in a school that focused on classical theater and Shakespeare, where Barry was actually one of my teachers. And then I graduated from drama school and had no opportunity to do Shakespeare ever. It just didn't come my way. I started doing musicals, and I became a musical theater performer. And then when I started directing, it was mostly musicals. So when Barry said a couple summers ago, "Hey, I want you to do a Shakespeare," I thought, "Oh God, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's out of, it's unattainable. It's not in my." And he and I sat, and he asked me my thoughts on the story. He asked me my thoughts on the language. And the more we just started talking, he just kept saying, you know what, you can do this. It's just a story. It's just another story. So, Merry Wives of Windsor, the bug bit again, and he bit hard. So when he came to me with Comedy of Errors, I mean, there was no second thought. It was like, yeah, I want to do it again. I don't know what's going to happen. It still scares me, but more reason to do it. It was, and to be fully transparent, I've done Comedy of Errors before. I have worked on Comedy of Errors before, so it was as the choreographer, and so it was a show that I was a little familiar with. Now, to be even more transparent, when I had worked on it previously, it was a 30-minute student version, which trimmed down to just the silly mistaken identity of it all. So when I opened it up to start prepping for this, after I had a very enthusiastic and confident yes, I was like, oh, well, that part wasn't in the play before. And, oh, well, that's a new character. So it did catch me a little off guard, but...
Well, one of the things that's so specific to this production is sort of the container and the theme and the world that you've created around this show. Can you talk a little bit about that and the inspiration for that?
Yes, yeah. Uh, uh, I'll preface with when we were talking about the summer and producing the Summer Shakespeares this summer, there was a little bit of a desire to go back to some of the repertory roots, and not in the sense of the same company doing one show one night and then coming back the next night and doing a different show, but in the idea that the world would be sort of similar, and that the other show could step out there tomorrow night and perform All's Well That Ends Well, and getting back to those roots a little bit. So I say that because when you see Comedy of Errors, the scenic world is going to look very similar. The base of the world is going to look very similar. The arena, as I call it. And then it's been transformed to fit our world. Barry and I also, when speaking early on about it, he was very excited and inspired by the 1950s spin that I had put on Merry Wives of Windsor, and said, "So what decade are you bringing for this one?" And I, I'd done the 50s, had a great time. I had just, before heading here, opened a musical set in the 80s using all 80s jukebox music. So I knew I didn't want to go 80s. 2000s didn't seem like anything, right? And I was sitting in my backyard, and I was reading Comedy of Errors over and over and thinking, I don't know, I can't figure out where to set it. I know it's going to be in this formation, in this sort of world. And I just had music playing, and somehow the playlist switched to my 90s playlist. And as I was reading Comedy of Errors and the 90s playlist was playing in my ear, the music and the drive of the music started supporting some of the scenes. And then there were lyrics to the songs that started supporting some of the monologues. And for a brief moment, I was like, oh, this is great. We're going to do a jukebox musical, and I'm going to put... that's not what you'll see. It is all Shakespeare's language, but I found a beautiful drive with this 90s music, and also such beautiful specificity to this 90s music when it came to characters and how you could start to establish certain characters with the themes of certain songs and how certain songs pushed the story forward. And then I started thinking back to some of my early days in New York City and where I had heard a lot of this music, and it was in the clubs. And I thought, well, that's an interesting sort of world. And then I started thinking, okay, well, it can't be set in a club. The whole show doesn't make sense in a club. It's these two worlds that are apart, coming together. These sea towns or these ocean towns. And I started researching or American ocean towns in the 90s, and at one point had gotten obsessed with Port Clinton, Ohio. But then I suddenly looked at a map and I went, oh, Portland, Southern California. And the music of the 90s, which was coming from Portland and the West Coast. And then I started researching what was going on in industries at that time. And the factories on the West Coast were starting to close their doors, and people were moving. I read this whole article about this factory shut their doors because the weather was too nice, and they wanted to move their shop outdoors. And they did. And suddenly this sort of warehouse world and this club world and the need to break into the light started making sense to me. But then I thought, well, that doesn't sound funny. But that really inspired this 1990s world that starts a little heavy in vision, and as the mistaken identities and the confusion and the fun starts to happen, the color in the world starts to really pop out. And by the end of the show, it's a literal rainbow. I call it the Skittles Bowl. We start with this sort of sullen bowl on stage, and by the end, that candy bowl is full. And that was the inspiration for what we have.
Wow. It's interesting as you're talking. It sort of seems like you've processed it as like you would a musical. Even if it's not a musical, there's like a certain way that you're connecting the music to the storytelling that's very musical-esque.
Well, I was on a panel once with local San Diego directors. It was who was it? Sam Woodhouse, Chris Ashley, David Ellenstein, and me. And I sat there, and this was like 10 years ago, and I sat there really going, why am I here? These guys are the ones I've been following. And they said, so you all direct straight plays and you all direct musicals. How are they different? And every single one got up there and said, well, they're very different because this and this and this and this. And then the mic got handed to me, and I went, they're the same. And all the heads went. But I honestly, even a straight play, even a play that doesn't even have music listed in the script as, inspiration for tone or energy, I can always tell that I'm interested in the script if I start to hear a musicality with the dialogue. And if in my brain I start to see a dance of the story. If I can start to see a picture that is moving in a certain way and hear it start to ring, then I know that it's something that I want to take part in. So I think everything everything I do is approached a little like a musical. I think there's musicality and dance in our just walking down the street daily.
That's really lovely. So you have this brilliant idea, this brilliant concept. How do you even approach working with the designers to get them to this really absolutely fun place that you've created?
I'll tell you with this one. It was when I said we're setting it in the 90s. Here's a playlist of music inspiration, and here's a little photo book of just a lookbook of inspiration for me. My entire design team, who's that? That's the same That's the same phone ring I have. Oh. Someone's dog is barking. So your dog's calling. Mine does it too. I was like, that's me. What were we saying? My design team. They I hear dogs. Listen, dogs. I'm like, squirrel. They're all children of the 90s, and so when I presented them all this information, they were like, "Are you kidding? Let's go." And the best thing about it is, they then started saying, well, you know what song we need to add in, or you know what look you need to put in, or you know what iconic moment from that. So it was really fun with this design team, who were all excited by the period and inspired by the period, because they then wanted to bring their own personal story, nostalgia, joy to it. So this has been one of the easier and more fun processes, because it became it was personal in a way to a lot of us.
That's great. And how did you approach casting this production? I know I'm sure some of you are familiar. We have our MFA USD students who are in the festival summer shows. There's 14 of them, so they make up a good majority of the cast. And then we also cast both locally in San Diego and also in New York. But you knew some people from previous lives and other shows. And then there are a couple returners to the Old Globe even from this season as well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the MFA students are fantastic, as you all know. And what one of the things I love is I get to work with them in the school setting. So I get to know them prior to working with them out on the festival stage. And it's fun to get opportunity to challenge them, get opportunity to celebrate them, or find roles that I think, ooh, that's going to be that one's going to make them really think, but they're going to really succeed. Or that role is something that is just perfect that they're going to dive into and just rise. So it's always fun in that situation. We have 8 non-MFA actors in the show, and I think the casting process for this was both exciting and challenging, because it involves 2 sets of twins, and there were many different versions of those twins that we played with. There was a moment in time where I was gonna Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 2 sets of twins, and have them just look absolutely nothing alike. That's not where we ended up. There was a period where we talked about playing with the genders of the twins. We talked about the identity of them and who that might be. And it ultimately, what's really lovely about having such a long time here at the Globe and the relationship is the trust that has been built, and to now be at the point with the Globe to have some pull when it comes to casting, and have the confidence in them, or them have the confidence in me that I'm bringing in the right folks to the Old Globe. So what finally sort of happened is I was lucky to handpick actors that I was either a fan of, that I loved their work, and just thought they would bring something really special to this production, or that I have been friends with and have had a relationship with for years. A classmate of mine from Juilliard is in the show. And that has been one of the most exciting things about directing at this level and around the country, is getting to bring in your really, really talented, skilled friends that you have grown up with through this industry. So we sort of did that. I mean, it was fun. I got to sort of pick my favorites. My favorite talented people, and they're out there acting like fools, chasing each other around, doing mixed identities, you know?
Yeah. So we're still in previews. We have a couple more previews before we officially open on Saturday. Who's seeing the show tonight? Oh, great. Fabulous. Did anyone see it on Sunday that's here? No. So, James, I'd love to know, what are some things that you can share that you're still thinking about as you watch tonight's preview that you're going to continue to work on until we get to Saturday?
Yeah, that's so interesting. As I feel like I'm giving secrets away, or like, or making disclaimers, right? But no, it's I think. With a show like this that has physical comedy and has funny moments, you spend all that time in the rehearsal studio, and you eventually lose the laughter down there, because I've seen it 17 times and am trying to finesse it, and I'm not looking for the laugh really. And even your cast members stop laughing, and then you head into tech, where you just stop running the show entirely for a couple days. So Sunday night was our first time back at running the whole thing, and in front of this audience. And I thought we had a wildly successful night, and I thought we were a little hesitant. We were a little comfortable because we had gotten that way in the room with no butts in seats, as we say, you know. And so what we worked on a lot today at our rehearsal this afternoon, we looked at cues, we looked at the stakes of the story, and sort of reminded ourselves of the points in the story where it starts to spiral and then spirals a little more. And I think that's sort of, and then the many, many little things like are the positions right? Is the choreography right at that moment? Is the angle right at that moment? But I think as a big overall thing, that's sort of where my eyes are tonight, especially. And then I'll go home and I'll be up till 3:30 in the morning replaying it all, and we'll come in and we'll tackle something else tomorrow. Yeah.
And what are you hoping that the audience leaves feeling like or taking with them as they watch this show?
I mean, if nothing else, just have released a little bit and breathed a little bit and laughed and had a really good time with the community is the goal. And if there were an icing on a cake, I think, you know, I love the last line of the show is we came into this world as brother and brother. Now let's go in hand, not one before the other. And I think without getting too messagey, there's a lovely message there that through all this misidentification and miscommunication in the show, if we all just stop, take a moment, breathe, and actually just acknowledge each other, I think we find that there's more in common than not, and that we can walk out into the world a little more as a team. You know, so that.
That's lovely. Thank you. Well, we know that I can chat to you all day long, and we do have many a coffee that we do that. But I'd love to open it up to all of you if any of you have any questions for James. Yeah, back here. There's a microphone right next to you.
Hi.
Okay.
I can't
Hi,
hear
good
it.
to see you.
Hi. You used two terms earlier that I would appreciate if you could expand on. One was sitz probe as part of the rehearsal process, and then the other one was swing. And I have seen swing, understudy, stand-in. I wonder if you could explain the differences between all of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
The sitz probe is the moment in rehearsal when, for the first time, we bring the band or the orchestra in, and it's the first sing that the cast will have, the first sing through of all the songs with the band, and it can be done a couple different ways. The sitz probe is we're all sitting in the rehearsal studio, and then when it's our turn to sing, we step up to the microphone, and it's a closed room, and it is the microphone is there just so we're not screaming over the band or the orchestra. And it is the meeting of the two worlds for the first time. There's another version of sitz probe called Vondel probe, which Vondel probe usually happens when you're running short on time, and you still have stuff to figure out on stage. Vondel probe, the orchestra will play, and we'll actually walk the show rather than just standing at music stands and singing. So you get a little bit of a run-through rehearsal at the Vondel probe compared to the sitz probe, which is sitz probe. And then swing is coverage for actors who are out. You traditionally will see the understudy. The understudies are typically in the cast, playing a different role, but they cover somebody else and will step out to play that role should they need to. A swing is an offstage cover who covers anywhere from 4 to 9 different roles. And you are ready to step in the middle of a musical number. One of my favorite stories in Grinch, Swinging Grinch, was we had an actor who got sick mid-show, and so they were suiting me up at the beginning of a number, and he was on at the beginning of the number, and on his exit, he left and just kept going, and on the re-entrance, I came on. But the best part of it, nobody noticed. He was a 6'3" muscular black man, and then 5'7" bald Mexican American James waddles on. So it was real subtle in that one. But and then the standby. Standbys are always off stage, and they are usually there for just the principal role. So the standby is there to cover the Grinch. In the Grinch case, we don't. We just have the understudy for the Grinch who's in the cast. And if he's in the ensemble, and if he goes on as the Grinch, the swing steps in to the ensemble spot.
Thank you. Yes, right here.
So, yeah, so which artists and songs from the 90s are you talking about? It was a pretty big decade.
All right. I mean, we've got some Lisa Loeb. We've got some Pump Up the Jam. We've got some Gangsta's Paradise. We've got Wilson Phillips. We've got R.E.M. We've got Whitney Houston. I mean, we hit the Billboard Top 20. Yes.
What is the running time?
What's the running time? Are you all ready for this? Yes. That actually sounded like the intro to the song. Are you all ready for this? Boom, 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 boom. Pack your lunches, pack your bags. Clocks in at 1:25. Barry said, "James, you think you can make a one-act comedy of errors?" And I said, "Bring it, Barry." No, so it's fast and furious and a whole lot of fun. Yeah.
Yes, right here.
Yes and no. Was there a lot that had to be cut to reach that 1:25? Yes and no. You know, it's interesting because what we really discovered is, and Shakespeare does this a lot, he repeats information. And he repeats, and he will give characters the opportunity to give their version of the information. And so what we really discovered is the comedy of errors is this twin told a story, and then this twin came on in the next scene and told the exact same story, and then the sidekick twin came on and told the exact same story, and then we heard it the fourth time from the sidekick's twin, and you could hear it once and just get a line or two of the others saying that they were there or they remember the story, and it's the information. You know, and then there are a couple moments which Shakespeare always also loves to bring in C storylines and D storylines for smaller featured roles, and we were able to minimize some of those C and D storylines to really keep the focus in on our 8 principal players.
Hi there. Well, I hope this it comes out all right. I just I'm nervous about even a microphone. I am so impressed with your world, and I have been a great fan of theater, and I know, but I could never stand up and do what you do. But what I appreciate so much in life is learning, and tonight is a magical moment because it's like you are so real and you're inviting us into this world. And I'm thrilled, and I hope I keep learning. And I love Shakespeare. I love this particular play. However, I want to keep learning so I can appreciate music of the '90s.
There's some good songs there. We're ready. We're ready. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm a seventh grade English teacher. And what would you say to students who get lost in the middle of a play? What should they look for? What should they listen for? And that's the same question for myself when I lose my train of thought.
Yeah. In theater in general, or specifically in Shakespeare? You know, it's interesting because I think for me, when I'm directing, and if I start to get confused in the moment, or I start to get a speech gets big and wordy, and I start to get a little lost, where my brain always goes, and this is an actory term, but I go to what is the action of the scene. And what I mean by that is I will remind myself what has happened right before, what has happened right at the beginning that has brought us to the point we are right now. And if I can backtrack myself a beat or two, then I may not fully be clear on what is happening, but at least I'm focused myself back in, and I'm back in the story and re-listening to what's going on. And it's something I used to do as an actor, honestly. When I was up in a moment and would get lost in the moment or would get distracted by something, I would, in my brain, what is the action of this moment? The action is, I want this. And now, even as a director, as an audience member, and I get lost often, and it's my fault, because I start watching the lights, or I start watching how the set is moving. And I then have to sit there and go, okay, what is the pointer they're doing? The action they're playing right now is the father's returning home, and if I give myself those little keys, I find I'm back in. And bring all your. I mean, I want to say that tonight's show is so accessible.
Yes.
For these younger audiences, and I don't think you're in school session right now, which is too bad, because it's a perfect version of this show for all ages.
Yeah.
You know, which I'm really excited about, that we can hopefully knock on some brains and introduce Shakespeare to folks who may not think they like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
With two sets of twins who for some reason have the same name, how are we supposed to tell them apart? How are we supposed to tell them apart, and why did you decide to do it that way?
Well, that's the whole fun of it, right? Is which one is it? No, you know, I will say, we had that they have the same name. If anyone here can answer why that is, let us know, because that's a question we're trying to figure out. We were like, really? They could, because the dad even says at the beginning, who could only be distinguished by their names, but then we meet them and they're both called Antipholus and Dromio. So somewhere something got lost. Oh gosh, and what was the other part of the? Oh.
Why do you do it that way?
It's this was actually a fun conversation with our costume designer. I didn't want them to be dressed exactly alike. So you will see, we like to call it the find the differences. You know those pictures where you're looking for what's different? And they're very clearly, you can see the differences between them. But it is a fun game because one of them, the stripes on the shirt go this way, one stripes go this way. One of them, the vest is a little different than the other one's vest. So it's the two Dromios. One's hat is a little different than the other Dromio's hat, and so that's where we had our fun.
And just to add, if I may, they are very distinctive people as well, and have very distinctive personalities and qualities to them of how they look at the world and how they interact with people. Which I think is really brilliant.
Well, and that's been part of the fun in for the other folks in the story, is Sarah Stiles, who's fantastic. She plays Adriana, our female lead, and the wife, who gets confused by which one's my husband. She and I were talking today. And there was a really fun discovery that she made in front of the audience on Sunday night, is that the two antiphalies interact with her physically with different energy. And she said that it was really interesting on Sunday night in front of the audience to be like, oh. That she always feels safe, there's that. But she said there was one that was like, oh. And then the other one, when he went to hug her, it was more of a, oh. The one that is her husband, is the one that she was like, was weird. It felt a little like, oh. And then the one that was not as that, she said actually helped the performance, because I was like, I know you, I love you, but why does that feel different? So that's been fun for us to discover and play as well. Just what the differences between the two energy-wise is.
We have time. Yes, please.
So of your 8 principal actor friends, are they all veteran Shakespeare's, or is anybody new to it? And if so, who is that?
Yeah. I'm going to bust them, huh? No, there are two of our 8 have never done Shakespeare before, and I got to tell you, you would never be able to tell. I'm not going to tell you who, but they're both, and you know what it is? It's interesting because. They're both musical theater performers first. And they're with a show like this. I think it might be different if we were doing Richard III, but with a show like this that does have some musical sensibility to it, some fun. The language is not as difficult as the others. I think their musical theater backgrounds gave them a leg up. There was a way in to the rhythm and musicality that just fit them naturally.
We have time for one more. Does anyone have a great last question?
So one of the things that Shakespeare did a lot of is within his thing, he would have dialogue that was specifically for the peasants, and he would have dialogue that's specifically for the nobility. And as you were going through, did you find that easier to cut down everything? Or did you sit there going, oh, wait, and you realize that, wait a second, that's not going to work?
No, I don't think so. But you know what I did pay real attention to are those class shifts and making sure that we didn't lose too much of the verse when the verse really needed to be there and really elevated the moment, and also who that verse was given to in that moment, right? And helping set the status of our world through some of the language. And because it is set in the 90s, there are some of the language has been updated, and I was very specific, tried to be very specific in Ephesus maybe being allowed certain words where Syracusians maybe would use different words for the same, and just what that status and hierarchy might be or might not be. Yeah, but no, I think this particular script, one of his early ones and one of his shortest one, is I think he did a really good job of the status with the language in this one. Yeah.
James, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for everything you've
Thank
given
you
to
all.
the Globe, to the community, to our audiences. We really hope you enjoy.